whole life is a lie because my real name is John.
What did you say?
I said my whole life is a lie because my real name is John.
Oh, his name is John. It is true.
Yeah. But it didn't make any difference because I had an older brother, Walter, and an older sister, Ann, and my dad couldn't remember anybody's name, so he called everybody Walter and Ann. So anyway.
Okay, good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Have you had many questions about your old piece of equipment out there?
Yes.
Have you?
Quite a few.
Okay,
yes.
All right.
And it's a 1919 Rome grader. I found it in the woods up in northern Mississippi, and it's really rare. And, I'll explain it later, but that's basically my life now. I find old equipment, I restore it, and I give it to museums.
This is true.
So it's going to Indiana, and it won't be back. It'll stay there.
We're not talking about little stuff. I have another slide I'll show you in a moment. But Dan, tell us where you're from and a little bit about your family.
Was born in Hartford City, Indiana. And to explain my family, my dad came from West Lafayette, and my mother was from Dunkirk, Hartford City. They were farmers. Dad graduated, he went to Purdue, and he met my mother, and I had an older brother that was born in West Lafayette. And after he graduated with a civil engineering degree, he went to work for Roebling and moved to New Jersey to work on the George Washington Bridge. And so then I had an older sister that was born in New Jersey. And from there, he helped design the sky ride on the Chicago World's Fair. And he went to Chicago for 2 years to operate and run the sky ride during the World's Fair. And I had a sister that was born there. And then, pardon me, he, at that point in time, he was traveling back and forth to Princeton, where he was on the design team for the Golden Gate Bridge. And then they moved to what everybody calls San Francisco, but most of the construction effort was in Sausalito. They moved to Sausalito, and I had a sister that was born there. And so then after they finished the bridge, they moved to Iowa, where he was primarily working on cable drilling technology, and was going to buy a farm in Iowa, but the war broke out, and so he was asked to go to be the head engineer on the bridges on the Alcan Highway. So he, pardon me, he moved my mother back to, they bought my great-grandfather's farms in Indiana, and they moved my mother and my sisters and brother back to Indiana. And he went to Alaska and Canada for 2 years, and when he came back, then another sister and myself were born in Hartford City, and basically grew up on a farm. So
you missed one sister born in Iowa, right?
Oh, that's right. I had a sister born in Iowa too. So there's a whole passel of us.
So tell us about your early years.
You grew up on a farm. It was a great life. You spent all your time outside. At 6 years old, you were farming by yourself. Driving a tractor. I always remember I was 8 when I got my first shotgun for Christmas, and was hunting all the time. And so I went to Mill Grove, Indiana to school, and it was the first 8 grades, and it was a 3-room school. And so first, second, and third was in the first room, and fourth and fifth was in the second room, and sixth, seventh, and eighth was in the third room. So you You know, I always told my grandkids, I said, yeah, I spent 3 years in the first grade and 3 years in the second grade and 3 years in the third, just 21 when I graduated from the 8th grade. So, but it was a good life. You know, I graduated there were 11 of us that graduated from the 8th grade. You know, and everybody but one were farm kids. And, you know, the town had a filling station, grocery store, post office that was owned, you know, in the town. It was a town of 100 people. So there was no rules to school. If you had lunch, you brought your bag, and or you walked downtown which was a block, you know, to the grocery store and got yourself a Coke, and there was no rules. There was, you know, like I tell everybody, we took our shotguns to school and put them in a room by the front door so we could go hunting on the way home. You know, when we walked home, it was a very good life.
You went to high school, right?
Yes, I went to the big city of Dunkirk to high school, played basketball. You know, there was 40 of us that graduated when I graduated from high school, and it was you know, you were limited in the fact that there were 5 of us that wanted to take trigonometry, and they said they couldn't offer it, so we said heck with it. There was an empty room, so we just got together, and the teacher would come in and give us an assignment, and then we'd sit there and we held our own class, and that's the way I studied trigonometry. You know, you just did it on your own. You know, that was all. But, you know, so I grew up as a normal farm kid, farming. You know, the one thing I did do, though, is I baled a lot of hay. I ran a baling crew when I was 14. And we'd bale 125,000 bales a year, you know, and we made good money, really good money. And when I was 16, our tractor broke down on the farm, and Dad said, "No, we need to get a new tractor. We don't have enough enough money. We need to get another one." So I just paid for half of it. So I just bought a tractor, and I was 16, you know. So, but you know, graduated, and life began.
So you struggled a little when you decided to go to college at first, right?
Oh, no, I struggled a lot.
So tell me about that and what made you decide to go to the Army.
I didn't decide to go to the Army. The government decided for me to go to the Army. I started college, and I soon found out that, you know, I had never learned to study. High school was so easy. Grade school was so easy. And especially mathematics was so easy that, you know, I'd taken every class there was, but I didn't have to study anything. But I also had a dad at home that was an engineer, and we sat down and was doing design work all the time. And so it was just normal. The only class I ever had trouble with was typing. And I got up to 20 words a minute. That was it, you know. So I basically failed at college. I went and when I was younger, I'd learned to lay tile, sewer tile. And so I went and did big sewer tile jobs. And I was working in Auburn, Indiana on a big sewer job. And I got the card that said, you know, "We want you, the government." And so I drove home, and I walked in, and it was during the week, and I should have been working, and Dad said, "Well, why are you home?" And I said, "Got drafted." He said, "Never looked up from the newspaper and said, about time you did something worthwhile with your life." But that was my dad, you know. When we were young, we worked. I mean, you worked. But it was never you worked, you had a goal. We need to plow the back 40 today. There were goals that you were set, you know. And I saw a study not too long ago from Harvard, and they were talking about kids that had jobs when they were young and how much more self-confidence they had than those that didn't work when they were young. And, you know, you don't work, you have a goal that you're going to make, you know. So, you dropped it?
I did. I'm sorry. Well, then that's a good place to tell us what happened when you went to the Army. Or tell us about the Army.
Yeah. No, I was going to tell them my religious training, you know.
Oh, yeah.
I
Oh, yeah. That ought to take about 2 seconds. Go ahead.
You know, when I was young, I had this extensive religious training. You know, my mother sent me to Bible school all the time, and so we'd always go out back behind the church and shoot craps or shoot marbles. But you know, and I had a steely, you know, out of a bearing, a ball out of a bearing, and most kids didn't understand, you know, that, you know, inertia, you know, and so, but the two things that do stand out in my life. I was hunting one time with Dad, and we were back in the woods. Sat down on a log, and we were just talking. And he says, "You know, you're a lot closer to God here than you ever will be in a building." And then another time, we had a north farm, which my brother bought, and it had a 20-acre woods on it. And later on, I was back there walking through the woods with my brother, and it was a spring, and there was just wildflowers everywhere. I mean, acres and acres and acres, blue and purples and whites. And my brother said, "You know, God puts these here for me because nobody else ever sees them." So, you know, I didn't have any religious training. I still don't have any religious training. You know, and I don't read anything about religion. I have a life to live. I know where I'm going.
Well, you do hear a lot about spiritual things, maybe not religious, but I know you hear me say a lot. Well, that's right. You're not listening. That's right. That's right. I forgot. That's right. You're physically present.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. What did the Army do for you?
Well, there's times in your life when you know, they always say when you come to a fork in the road, take it. You know, I think one of those forks was when I got that piece of paper and said, I went to, of course, basic and AIT, and went to the West Coast and was sent to Vietnam. And I was with the 1st Cav in Vietnam up in the what's called northern part of the country. We operated in the mountains, and it was tough, you know, but there's one thing you learn. Those that survive don't care if they die. And you just don't care about death anymore. And I think that carries over. One time she asked me, "What would you do if somebody came in the back door of this church, you know, with a gun?" And I said, "Who is the person that's going to stand up and take their life to take him out?" You know, there's got to be somebody that's willing to give their life so that everybody else can live, you know. And, you know, I would. I mean, I know I would. Wouldn't make any difference. Because you know, if I die, I'm going to die someday, so it doesn't matter, you know. But anyway, I got back from when I was up in the mountains, and they called in and said, "Sergeant Voght, you're out." And they took me down to Cameron Bay to shift back to the United States. And another key point is, at that point in time, I thought, you know, I'm good at the Army. I'm good. And they said, well, you want to re-up? And I said, okay, what's do I get if I re-up? And they said, you're going back up in the mountains and leave that squad. And I thought, nah, I'm out of here. You know, or else if it had been, well, we're going to send you to Germany or you're going to do something like that, I would have stayed in. And I would have been a different life. But at that point in time when they said, no, you're going back up and run that squad, you know, I'd been shot up enough, you know. So you just got those points where your life changes. But then I came back. I left Vietnam, and 72 hours later I was out of the military. A hell of a shock. Yeah.
And then what did you do?
Oh, I was going to tell you one thing about before I go there. I was going to tell you about one thing. You know, when I graduated from high school, I did something that everybody should do. I got a job. I bought a Corvette and bought an airplane. I wrecked the Corvette and wrecked the airplane. But, you know, you got to do things like that. That's the fun part of it. You know?
Okay, kids.
So anyway.
Don't listen to him on some of this stuff, okay? Okay, you know, we're teaching you the right things. Some of these things just disregard. Mm-hmm. Okay.
But anyway, I came back, I looked at, you know, I got the GI Bill, went to college. I went to Ball State, which is in Muncie, Indiana. And one of the reasons I went to Ball State, it was close to where I was living, and it was also one of the best math schools in the country. I ended up there, and I was studying statistics because I was really thinking I was going to go into actuarial sciences. And one of the professors said, "You know anything about computers?" And I said, "Nope." And he said, "Well, study up on Fortran because we need somebody to write statistical programs for us." And so I did, and then that said, okay, I'll take a class in it, and then they opened up a degree program in computer science, and so I graduated with a degree in mathematics and a degree in computer science with a minor in mathematical economics. And really, the first job I had was assistant director of a research organization, where I did statistical research, which I enjoy, and that's the reason I enjoy poker, because it's all stat, you know. Same thing. It's all statistics. If you understand statistics, you can be good in poker. So, yeah.
Yeah, if you're not, don't try it.
That's
okay?
right. Uh-huh.
Yeah, if you're not really good at that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what about your career?
That was wild. I went, after I was the assistant director of research, a insurance company got a hold of me and wanted me to help them in developing some data acquisition process, which was just the beginning of database technology, which some people understand, some people don't, you know. But so I went to help develop them on their storage technology, and then at the same time we started consolidating their data centers so that they could be more efficient in their operation, and so we moved two data centers and consolidated into one into Louisville, Kentucky. And then I ended up meeting her, and you know, my whole life changed forever, and so
for the better, hopefully.
And so I don't have to worry about my reason for life anymore, because right here it is. I mean, whatever she needs, you know.
Now that was sweet.
Yeah. Anyway, so after I met her, she lived in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and I was in Louisville, Kentucky, and so I got a job in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and basically from there on I was a hired brain. That's all I did. I was a consultant. They just farmed me out to wherever they needed me, and I worked in insurance companies and banks and military and railroads and all over. But the last 15 years of my career, most of it was in corporate mergers. I did the IT planning and designed the data centers for corporation mergers, which gets really complicated. And the last one I had was a company was being bought out by two different companies, and you had to split it in half and take half of it one way and half of it the other way. And of course, you had to stay in operation while you were doing this. And so she knows there were many times that I went to work on Friday morning and got off Monday night. You know, that was, you just had to when you were moving a data center.
Well, you did that at the Pentagon too, didn't you?
Yes, and I was led the design team for the data centers and command centers in the Pentagon when they did the Pentagon renovation. And so that was a interesting time.
Well, and at some point you decided.
Yes, and then one day I got home and I told her, I said, we didn't retire. I just said, I'm done. I'm burnout. I can't do this anymore. And she says, well, I'm quitting next week, so. So we both quit. And we don't have any retirement. Whatever we saved and build up ourselves. And then.
Actually, I did leave the corporate world about 10 years before you did. But you're right. When you told me you were getting ready to retire, it pretty much made my decision. I beat you to it.
Yeah, the railroads are the worst people in the world to work for. So, other than that, so, but then, we were going to retire to the coast. We lived in Tennessee, and we had a beautiful home on a lake and 20 acres overlooking over the lake, and we wanted to move down here, and she said that she wanted to become a minister, and I said, that's fine. She said, what do I want to do? And I said, I'm going to become a dumb old country boy, and that's what I'm doing. That's. And.
Well, and I'm glad you explained all that, because nearly everybody thinks, and we've been here since 2005. We've been living here quite a while. And most people just seeing what you do now or hearing what we talk about, they assume that you ran a construction company or that you built farm equipment or something. But I know with your math background, you certainly helped Shelby get through some of her difficult math classes. She seems to get that ability for math from you. The rest of us don't.
Yeah.
And then.
Well, then the background allowed me, when they were going to build this building, I said, what do you want? And they handed me a picture and said, we want it to look like this. And I said, okay. And so I designed this building, and
And he built it.
Yes, and built it, yes. But it's interesting how much goes into just like the acoustic. We have good acoustic because the way the room is designed, and I always say, we started to put the steeple on the other church, and I called people up and said, I need to buy a steeple. And they said, oh, no. You don't just buy a steeple. There's there's a whole mathematical formulas you go through to determine what steeple you're going to put on a building. And I thought, nah. But yeah, there is. And I drive down the road now and I look at churches and I say, that's not the right steeple for that building.
Wouldn't have known that was... Now, this is some of the little tractors that he has owned and keeps operating. Just so you know, a lot of times people, when I'll say, oh, well, he's gone to a tractor show or something, they're visualizing a few little John Deeres or something. Nah, we're talking about this stuff that is not easy to haul in, but that's his hobby right there. And he owns several things like that and keeps them mostly in Indiana, up there close to where his sister lives. But so what advice would you give these young people?
Do what you love to do. You know, that's the main thing. Work is not work if you love doing it.
This is true.
You know, this is not work to me. This is just fun. It's really fun. You know, I've got my little shop and I restore stuff and give it to museums. But, you know, work was fun for me because it was math and it was all fun stuff. You know, it's great to do that. I still do it. I still sit around at night and try to figure out things, you know. Like there's an old problem that's called 3x plus 1 problem, and it's just if you take a number and it's even, then you multiply it by 2, and if it's odd, you divide by 2, and if it's odd, you multiply it by 3 and add 1, and everybody's trying to figure out, and you always end up back at 421, 421, 421, 421, 421. You always end up back in this circle. And nobody can figure out how many steps it takes to get there depending on what number you get. And it's all random. And there's people have been working on this for 100 years and can't figure it out.
You're talking above my head, but maybe these kids will figure that out. Well, I want to ask you a question, and you haven't been prepped for this. So my brother-in-law, Tim Holt, who's just one of the most wonderful men in the world, and lives in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and he said many, many, many years ago, he told me, he said, Judy, you know that Dan Voght is a kinder and gentler man because he lives with you.
Yeah. But I think that the opposite is true. She's more outgoing, aggressive, and makes better decisions.
Confident.
More confident because of me. You know, one time somebody stated, we always had great big homes, and somebody stated the reason that we have big homes is because I have a big ego and she has a big aura. And that's true. You know.
Well, I'll just end with this, and that is that balance in all things matters in your own life, personally, in your relationships. Balance. It's key to making everything work in your life. Balance and harmony. And I find people that go to one extreme or the other easily and stay there, don't have a balanced life. And the most interesting thing, and this may sound like hooey to you, I don't know, but if you look at astrology and you look at or numerology and you look at our numbers, my year is a 5 and his is a 1, and the middle of that would be a 3. And it just so happens that every house we buy we bought 3 houses that had the number 300. And the house we're in now, it's actually a 3, and the 201 is a 3. And it's just the most interesting thing. And not that there's anything magical about that. It's a reminder to me all the time. It reminds me of the importance of balance and harmony in your life, and that actually it's the key to keeping relationships in harmony, businesses, any single thing you want to do, any single thing you want to do, there needs to be a healthy balance, and that's it, bottom line.
I grew up in a family of where my parents said, you can do whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want to do. All you have to do is just work for it. Yeah. And that was, that's the best advice I can give you.
Okay.
You know, you can do whatever you want to do.
And do what you enjoy.
And I've got 900 miles ahead of me.